Welcome to this special edition of the PAC Chat. I am Felicia Malelli, Board Chair and co-founder of the New Jersey Public Health Innovation PAC. If you are here with us for the first time, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. Tonight, we are just 2 days ahead of the third anniversary of one of the most significant political events in the history of the state of New Jersey. On January 13th, 2020, something extraordinary happened, a victory quite worthy of commemorating. But it all went down in a place where traditionally politics has come first. Yet this time, humanity stood in a way and refused to move. Mothers and fathers from across the state gathered to stand together in defense of their most fundamental right and most sacred responsibility to care for their children as only they can and only they will. Select New Jersey elected representatives were poised to disregard both fact and faith, both science and religion, by seeking to remove long-standing legal right to a religious exemption from the state school vaccine mandate. But other legislators that were true leaders raised their voices on behalf of the thousands crowded outside the State House walls and stood strong in accord with what they knew in their own hearts was the course to higher law. Collectively, we have dubbed this event the Battle of Trenton. Though what happened on January 13th, 2020 was utterly nonviolent and absolutely peaceful, but it was in fact a battle. It was a battle between love and fear, between faith and lies, and between business as usual and the dawn of a new era of engagement and accountability in New Jersey politics. As I think you all know, the good side won. And thank God for that, because the stakes were high and the consequences severe. The essential core of what it means to be a mother or a father was at risk. And with the sound of the final gavel on that ground shaking, cold winter night, it was preserved. But you also know that much bigger fight is still erupting. Here we are, 3 long years later, and most of the forces we have overcome in 2020 are still here in Trenton, still in power, and they have plans for our children and their health. So I don't think I need to convince you of the importance of the matters we will discuss here tonight. But I do want to sincerely thank you for offering your time and attention this evening. Your presence and your commitment here tonight is the key to winning the battles of the future here in New Jersey. Many of you were there in Trenton with us on January 13th, on all the other days as well. And we salute you. And we hope that this commemoration rekindles some of that magic for you too. Difficult times also create instant and eternal friendships. And I am grateful for all the special relationships forged on that State House grounds. And for those who celebrated that great victory from a distance, we felt your energy and your prayers, and we value everything that every one of you contributed to the cause back then and ever since. Every phone call to a legislative office, every conversation which began to change a heart or a mind mattered, and it matters still. So thank you. Now, let me introduce to you most of the heart and soul that makes up NJ5 PAC. These women who truly need no introduction at all. Katie Rivera, Lori Don Diego, Rula Ballantyne, Marin Gelinos, and unfortunately Matt Connolly, who could not be here with us tonight. At this time, for those of you who aren't as familiar with NJ5 PAC, I'd like to say a few words about who we are and how we started and what we do and why it's so important. We are the New Jersey Public Health Innovation Political Action Committee. A political action committee is a legal entity formed for the purpose of raising funds and then directing those funds for certain specific purposes. This generally means electing and defeating certain candidates and supporting or opposing specific legislation. Political action committees are often organized around a particular set of issues, and we are no exception. What is different is that we are the only medical freedom PAC in New Jersey. After the events which culminated in January of 2020, we realized that while such organizations existed for many other causes, there wasn't a single one devoted to ours. It was also true that those who oppose medical freedom, especially the corporate and professional medical giants, seem to have not one or two, but numerous PACs working toward their objectives. PACs are an essential tool for political influence, and our community was utterly unrepresented. There's an old saying, don't show up with a knife to a gunfight. Well, we had found ourselves on a battlefield with just our bare hands. That kind of sheer will and moxie was enough to win the day on January 13th, 2020. But we know the miracles don't always happen twice. They are singular events, which must inspire those who witness and experience them to take action which will ensure that they are never again in a situation so dire as to need a miracle. So we saw the need and we acted. And exactly 1 year later from that day, we launched NJ5 PAC. We were and still are blessed to have so many generous and loyal core supporters anyone could ever hope for. You who trusted in us gave critical early momentum in the hopes that this would grow into something which moves with grace and power, unyielding vigilance across the political landscape here in New Jersey. And that's the goal, and where we've made progress, some learning along the way, and are laying the foundations for the kind of real relationships which will only continue to mature. We are only just getting started. We are in this for our children, for all your children. So success is not a mere possibility, it is inevitable. Nevertheless, with the forces that oppose us working in the shadows, even as we speak, we need to accelerate towards the inevitability by activating the full potential of our community. It's a community even larger today than that which manifested outside the State House 3 years ago. It has only grown through the blatant injustices of this pandemic. NJ5 PAC isn't the only avenue of expression and influence for this community, but it is a valuable and unique one. We are honored to work with you, for you, and we hope you will spread the word about us and also aid to help as we need to work effectively towards our shared goals. Soon, I will pass the mic to Katie so she can give a full recap to help refresh our memories of the events that led up to January 13th. They are crucial to the story, and I can't think of any better way to lay them out for us. And a little later, we will offer some insight into what is happening here in New Jersey, the work we are doing, and the ways you can support us in doing that work for our common cause of health freedom in New Jersey. As I mentioned moments ago, the Battle of Trenton featured heroes, both inside and outside the State House. We are honored tonight, very honored, to have three very special guests who were there with us then and who have been with us ever since as great allies in the fight for health freedom in New Jersey and way beyond. Katie?
Thank you so much, Felicia. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so it was just 3 years ago that New Jersey claimed the win at what became known as the Battle of Trenton. As Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, and New Year's in 2019 and 2020 came and went, residents here in New Jersey were in the fight of our lives to stop the religious exemption removal bill from passing in the New Jersey State Legislature. Large sacrifices were made, and nothing about this victory was easy. People took time off of work at a moment's notice to be in Trenton. Parents removed their children from school to bring them to Trenton to take part in history and experience firsthand that this is how to exercise your rights to protest. This is the importance of religious freedom, and this is why you must hold your government and those in power accountable. There was a strong and noble commitment to be on the battlegrounds, to be one more face in the crowd, to be one more voice in the chant, and one more sign held up in the air for all to see. All of this is what became known as the Battle of Trenton. Let's walk through the timeline of some of the most unforgettable major events that culminated into the Battle of Trenton. It was April 2018 when, somewhat out of the blue, the Assembly Bill A3818 to remove the religious exemption was voted on and passed in the Assembly Health Committee. While this put advocates on alert, the bill sat without any further movement for quite some time. And so it was about 1.5 years later, in November of 2019, that the Senate bill S2173 to remove the religious exemption was scheduled to take a vote in the Senate Health Committee. Advocates and leaders across the state began to strategize, organize, and create sturdy information channels to alert every possible person in the state on what would lie ahead. The religious exemption removal bill was getting ready to move. On December 12th, 2019, New Jersey residents showed up in Trenton for the first protest, an outpouring of opposition against the religious exemption removal bill. The bill was put up in the Senate Health Committee that day for vote, and residents packed the room beyond its capacity. New Jersey residents lined up to give powerful testimony in front of that committee on why this bill should not pass. The composition of the Senate Health Committee was changed. 2 Democrats were intentionally removed from their committee seats, Senators Joe Lagana and Ronald Rice. Both senators were committed to voting no on our bill. Had they been permitted to attend their committee and vote, the religious exemption removal bill would not have passed that committee that day. Instead, their seats were replaced with senators who would ensure a yes vote on the bill, with Senator Sweeney, the Senate president, being one of those replacements. The bill passed the Senate Health Committee that day, and it was crushing. We left the Capitol with hoarse voices and exhaustion, knowing that the system had played out in a manner that felt corrupt and backhanded. Just 4 days later, on December 16th, we found ourselves back in Trenton with the religious exemption removal bill on the agenda in both the full Assembly and the full Senate. The bill was voted on and passed the full Assembly. The Senate session ran extremely long that day, with thousands of protesters outside in the cold rain, under the moonlight, chanting for hours and hours. Inside the State House, on the full Senate floor, Senator Vitale went back and forth like a mule between Senator Joe Lagana and Senator Sweeney in an attempt to coerce Lagana into voting yes on the bill. Finally, after more than 8 hours in session, Senate President Sweeney banged the gavel to close out the voting session. The religious exemption removal bill was not voted on that day because there were not enough votes for it to pass. Protesters left Trenton that day tired but hopeful. It was understood that Senator Sweeney, a man used to getting what he wants, was angry, embarrassed, and would be coming for revenge on the group he referred to as a bunch of moms banging drums outside. With Christmas around the corner and a promise from Sweeney that this bill will pass, New Jersey protesters were not ready to give up. On December 21st, Governor Murphy was hosting his annual holiday party at his home. It turned out that one of Governor Murphy's neighbors offered up their front lawn, and we quickly organized a grassroots demonstration. A sea of protesters and children lined the block leading up to Governor Murphy's steps, holding signs and protests. With bonfires blazing behind them, their collective chanting rang through the streets like a swarm of Christmas carols. while the who's who of Governor Murphy's guest list drove past them to attend the party at the governor's home. The Christmas and New Year's holiday came and went, but all the while the religious exemption bill was looming. On January 6th, a Jericho March was organized, and speakers such as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came to speak to the thousands who showed up in solidarity once again in Trenton to oppose this bill. On January 9th, the notorious Declan O'Scanlan Amendment was made to the bill. The amendment proposed that the religious exemption be removed for public schools only, but could remain as a choice for private schools. This amendment was a total backfire and erupted in many legislators now wanting nothing to do with the bill. On January 13th, the session was closed. Senator Sweeney did not succeed in getting the votes he needed in order to pass the bill in the full Senate. With the session ended, the bill was essentially pushed back to the starting line, leaving Sweeney to reconcile his defeat by what he labeled just a bunch of moms banging drums. On January 13th, 2020, thousands of us who spent a collective 2 months battling in Trenton were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. The Battle of Trenton was victorious. Let's take a look back now at some footage that captures some of these very special and powerful moments.
Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free?
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out, and move mountains. And I'll rise like the day, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I like the waves, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And for that we have each other. Yeah. spite of the ache, I will rise 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, like the waves will rise up. In spite of the ache, we'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
Dell just asked me what happened, and I'll tell you what happened. America happened.
Wow. Such an incredible video. Let's just take a moment and maybe a few deep breaths and just feel what that sequence of events was like almost 3 years ago. For me, this video brings back a flood of memories and emotions. Days, nights, hours upon hours, standing in the halls of the State House, chanting in the bitter cold and freezing rain, holding our breaths in the gallery as we prayed the bill number wouldn't be called. And then it was the sound of the gavel hitting the sound block. That was the moment that signified an end to the session, that no vote was going to be had. That was the beginning of a celebration, an instant sigh of relief, and a moment most of us, especially in this room, will never forget. Whether you were with us physically in Trenton or home or at work watching from your device, or maybe you're just seeing these rallies for the first time, no matter where you were, we hope you join us in appreciating this incredible display of activism. So, friends, to commemorate this Battle of Trenton, as we call it, the celebration of victory and the hope for the future, we would like to share with you a gorgeous keepsake necklace. And I don't know where my box went, but it was removed from the table. But it's on my neck. We have this beautiful necklace that is for the commemoration of the Battle of Trenton. And pictures are going to be up on the screen shortly, or they are now. Awesome. These are unique, custom-designed necklaces that are meant to serve as both a reminder of what was accomplished by our movement in Trenton, and also as a symbol of hope and strength moving forward. Because we all know this fight is not over. These necklaces are all for purchase on our website. There are 3 color options available. We have 14 karat gold, which I'm wearing right now. We have a rose gold filled necklace and a classic sterling silver, and they're all available in a 16-inch and 18-inch length with an adjustable chain. I'm wearing the 16-inch, just so you have an idea. They also have a 1-inch bar, and on the bar displays January 13th, 2020, which, as you know, is the day that we killed the bill in the Senate. These necklaces come beautifully packaged in this sturdy green box, so they are perfect as a gift for your wife or even a freedom-fighting friend, or better yet, you just keep it for yourself. So buy one for yourself or a friend or both. They're great as a gift. So again, whether you're with us in Trenton, watching from home, or if you're new to this movement, we hope that this necklace serves as a constant reminder of how much power your voice holds when you stand up for what you know is right. And that voice is even more powerful when you join forces with others with the same mission. But just in case jewelry isn't your thing, we also have custom designed apparel for purchase as well. These are also soon to be up on the screen. Here we go. We have a gorgeous sage green. This is the PAC green color in a super soft t-shirt. And then we also have in the color ash crew necks and hoodies. And they're available in all different sizes. They're all unisex. And guess what? They're all free shipping. So go to our website. The website is on your screen right now. So order right now, and all the proceeds will go directly to the PAC's work. And this year is especially exciting because the PAC is going to be using proceeds to go directly to candidates in the Senate and Assembly right here in New Jersey that support health freedom. And as you know, our candidates that the PAC supports not only support health freedom, but they're motivated to preserve and advance it. So your purchase will have a direct impact on our success and the success of all health freedom legislative candidates running this year. So what else do I want to say about this necklace? Just that it's an amazing conversation starter. It's an opportunity to educate others when people ask about the significance of the date. Or if you're more of a private person and you just want a stylish statement piece of only which you know the significance, you can do that as well. And guess what? It will last forever because it's jewelry. So to purchase a necklace, a hoodie, a shirt, just go to the website on the screen, nj5pac.org/shop. And again, grab that free shipping. But before I pass the microphone to the next presenter, I just want to say a special thank you to NJ5 PAC recurring contributors. Recurring contributors are really the foundation and the backbone of our fundraising here at NJ5 PAC. So if you're not already a monthly contributor, please consider joining today. For the next 24 hours, if you become a recurring contributor of at least $25 a month, you will receive a complimentary t-shirt. Again, nj5pac.org/shop to order a necklace, shirt, hoodie. Again, they're super soft and unisex. Buy one for a friend, buy one for yourself. And we thank you so much. And I'm going to pass the microphone over to my fellow board member, Melanie Dragon.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. I'm putting on the headphones because I have the first interview. Okay, there we go. Thanks so much, Marin. So we're excited that we have 3 special guests this evening. All of them stood with us in Trenton in 2019 and 2020. They were all part of the Battle of Trenton, shoulder to shoulder with us, the parents of New Jersey. I'm sorry, I'm having like technical difficulties. Okay. Oh no. Hold on. Yeah. Hold on, guys. Give me 1 second to figure this out. Hold on.
scroll, put the overlay up. You guys scroll through all of this. Can you guys put an overlay
Can you
up?
put the overlay?
Do you want me to jump on and talk about the necklace again?
No, we're good. First guest. Oh, sorry about that. We're back. So our first guest, who I have the privilege of interviewing, is Mr. Dell Bigtree. Dell Bigtree is one of the world's preeminent voices of the vaccine risk awareness movement. He is the founder of the nonprofit Informed Consent Action Network and the host of the breakout internet talk show, The Highwire. It's the fastest growing program in the natural health arena with over 100 million views. Dell's career as an Emmy-winning producer of the CBS talk show, The Doctors, changed profoundly when he produced the documentary Vaxxed, From Cover-Up to Catastrophe. Since its release, the film is credited with igniting a revolution against pharmaceutical tyranny around the world. Dell's nonprofit, the Informed Consent Action Network, or ICAN, is leading nationwide investigations into drug and vaccine fraud that have already resulted in multiple winning lawsuits against the U.S. government agencies, Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health, CDC, and FDA. Let's take a minute and take a look back at Dell in Trenton here in 2019 and 2020.
You guys hear me back there? The head of the police force here said in 20 years, I have never seen this many people show up for any issue there has ever been. Every single one of you is a leader, and every one of you is my hero. Thank you for being here. All of you and your beautiful children, we need to stay strong, we need to stay loud. Inside, think about what's happening. This is a resounding, powerful, vocal prayer to the people inside here. You are standing up for every religion and the freedom of religion in this nation right now. An amendment to the bill last Thursday, and that amendment essentially said, okay, we'll allow private schools to take unvaccinated children. Well, really, then that becomes a class war. That means that only people that can afford to be in a private school can opt out of the vaccine program.
At some point, they're going to have to vote. And until that moment happens, we're not going away. 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 We're not going away.
There you have it. Victory in Trenton, New Jersey. The Battle of New Jersey and Trenton has been won once again. History has been made The high wire was here when no one else. All of these people, all of these beautiful people stood together as a family, together, making a difference. Let it be known to every politician in this country, it went down in Trenton. In the belly of the beast, we have won. This is our time. If not us, then who? If not now, then when?
So powerful. Welcome, Dell.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight to commemorate the 3rd anniversary of the Battle of Trenton. We're so excited to have you here with us to take a look back at our win.
It's going to be hard not to get emotional. I'll be honest with you. It's one of the truly amazing miracles that's happened in my experience in this conversation, in this battle that we continue to find ourselves in many battles. That goes down as one of the really, and I think it was a turning point for this country when you think what came behind it. And we continue to be victorious in many ways, but Trenton made it possible for us to believe that people still had a voice. I think we were on the verge of thinking that politics was just going to run away. The whole thing was rigged. And the people showed up in such resounding numbers. And I'll just never forget standing on that little precipice there. And Mary Holland, who, isn't with us tonight, but stood there right next to me. And Jimmy, my manager. I mean, I don't think I was able to actually speak for 3 or 4 days, nor anyone in that audience. We did not stop. And I can only say it felt like, I imagine what we felt that night was what it feels like to win the World Series or the Super Bowl, for people that are invested and spend their lives with a dream, that dream of making a difference and standing together. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so powerful. And seeing these videos really brings back a lot of emotions for all of us. And we really wanted to create this event and to bring you on to really remind everyone of our victory, but also to activate them, to help them understand that this battle is never over. It's a marathon, and we have to stay vigilant always, because bills are being passed and moved every day. So I want to ask you, to your point about things changing after our battle in 2020, and thinking about our time in Trenton, can you share with us like a specific favorite memory that you have?
Well, I mean, obviously the favorite memory is the moment where we, were chanting. And then what was wild was I was looking at the audience. So everyone started cheering at a certain point, but I didn't see that behind me, up in the glass, we had, I believe it was Michael Sarnoff was up there just saying, it's dead. The bill's been killed. But really the whole day, and honestly, I had been out there. I think I was out there twice. Bobby Kennedy and I, because at that time, we were both trying to make as big an impact, but our schedules were so packed. So Bobby's like, I can make this date. It's like, how about you take that one? And so we were like tag teaming every time there was going to be another vote or something, trying to send someone out so that we could make sure that we just kept the pressure. And I guess in some ways I got the luck of the draw that I got the night where we got to just bring home the victory. But, some of my favorite memories are the speeches during the day, and what I think honestly was a turning point. And you got Jamel Holley that is going to be speaking, which is, honestly, when anyone says that this is a political issue, you have one of the great Democrats of our time that stand on our side. He's not alone. Bobby Kennedy, who we're talking about, I think will still say that he relates to himself as a Democrat. We got Michael Testa, who is in there fighting. But beyond that, that in that evening, I would say there was 7 or 8 different politicians, some that were going to be running for office, some that were inside, coming out literally to stump to this audience of, I don't know what was our final tally, somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 people, I think the police were saying. And I believe that beyond just winning it, that was the first time we saw politicians recognizing that this was an audience of voters that I need. And I think the Battle of Trenton, perhaps one of the biggest, most powerful shifts, was, I believe, that day, this issue that we became a voting bloc. We were no longer just, some, as Sweeney tried to describe it, right, outraged mothers banging drums. We became a force to be reckoned with, and politicians started realizing, smart ones, I better get on the right side of this path or I can't make it. I think that, I look at where Donald Trump is at. I think he's forgotten that. I don't believe without us that, and this movement, people like that win office. We are, and they're now saying it. They now recognize how powerful this movement has become. When I, and you can ask me questions, when we look at where we're at with COVID, which is another conversation, all of the polls are now showing the power. I think that this poll that just came out, Rasmussen poll, with 1 in 4 saying that they know somebody that has been killed by the vaccine. When you look at the poll out of Iowa, that only, I think, is 36% of Iowa voters believe that a vaccine should be mandated on children. Only 36%. That means we have become, I think, this conversation, and certainly the simple side of this, which is the right to choose, the right to body autonomy, decide what happens to my body. That may have seemed to them to be an outrageous thought, but we are now the majority of the population of America, and I believe a silent majority around the world. All that we have to do now is get this majority to start speaking out the way we did in Trenton, to start standing up and not being afraid to state who we are. If we were able to do that right now resoundingly around the world, I believe we end all of this probably tomorrow. In every next election, this is over. They've gotten away with making us afraid to speak out. Trenton showed the power of humanity, the power of the human voice. And it has begun. I mean, it really was a transitional moment for the movement, as I said, into the politics of this conversation. And we showed by those politicians stepping forward. And since then, more and more, everywhere I go, more and more politicians. The rally in Los Angeles, there was a line, like we had to limit. We had to say, look, we can't have this many politicians speaking. It's not about you. That is what became Trenton, started all of it.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. And to your point about us becoming a voting bloc, and that's exactly why we formed this political action committee, because we want to have a presence in Trenton, in the halls of Trenton, to cultivate relationships with legislators, to help them understand our issue. What I often tell advocates is that we are the experts on this issue, and we can't think that the legislators are going to know what we know or read what we read. So the impetus is upon us to do that, to educate them and inform them. And with the PAC, we've been able to create relationships and become a force. And we're a bipartisan PAC. We talk to both sides of the aisle, and we're able to produce a voter's guide that will help parents in the state of New Jersey understand who they're voting for and that they support health freedom. So it's
there's
really
2 points. So I just want to follow up there. Something that Senator Ron Johnson said to me privately, and maybe he said it when I was interviewing him, but he's made it clear to me. He says, a lot of you talk about the amount of money that funds out, from the lobby of pharma into politicians. He's like, I will be honest with you, Dell, that is not the issue. I don't get that much money. They're there, sure, but they're limited. And the money we get as senators and congressmen does not make a difference. It is not what is making our decisions. What is making our decisions is that lobby that comes into my office all the time and speaks to me. Every time there's a medical conversation, every time they are sending in doctors to tell me what, I'm supposed to be think health department people, like that is like the door. It's just, they're constantly coming through the door. And that's why what you're doing is so important. It's not that we don't have the funding. We are not, and because of PACs like yours in this shift, we are changing that. But that ability and the people that are funding you to send people on a constant basis, as you said, to educate these politicians, that's the game changer. We didn't have a voice inside of these offices. We were angry at politicians that just simply don't know what the conversations are about, don't understand the science around it, are being told there's only one way to see this. And so it is so important now that PACs like yours, that is how we compete in the space. That is how we take what is now a voting block and we start making these politicians understand what our demands are, what they're going to have to do, and what they're going to have to understand. So it's really critical. So we don't really have to think of how do we raise billions of dollars to buy politicians. We have to raise enough money to take people like yourselves that are dedicated in every state in this country and keep them in the offices of these politicians to start refuting the lies that are coming from the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, because they're watching mainstream media, our legislators.
That's it.
And really, we need to be the bridge to the high wire for them. And thankfully, we have relationships with a lot of legislators where we can just text over, a segment from your show.
That's
so
great.
Thank you for all you're doing, to help make it easy for us to educate and inform our legislators.
You're welcome. Thank you for using that tool. That's what it's there for.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. So now in 2023, how do you propose that we activate advocates, parents, Americans to continue to protect and preserve health freedom here in the US and worldwide?
Well, look, I think you have an advantage now that you didn't even have then, and that is this COVID disaster. This COVID vaccine has enrolled an incredible amount of people into this conversation. And I think politicians on both sides of the aisle, whether they admit it or not, in many ways are waking up to the horrors of not having control. So much of the backtracking by the CDC and the FDA, and you have to understand these regulatory agencies that they used to look up to have an all-time low in confidence, and even more so amongst the people. And we have got to just use this moment to continue to grow this movement, because and this is what I'm saying, in the end, politicians will, they don't move until the people move. And so there's been a lot of work to try and get politicians to do things 10 years ago. You couldn't do what we can do now. But it is really incumbent on every one of us to be vocal, to keep enrolling new people into this movement. So the next time we have to stand outside of the castle or the cathedral or, the state house, what we're talking about is we need enough people standing there that it makes a difference. That's what the Battle of Trenton truly proved. That was enough people. If that was 200 people, you don't win it. I just don't think you do. I think, when you could hear, and I loved when we knew Sweeney was talking to someone inside, the whole dynamic, we had people on cell phones, Sweeney's talking to Lagana right now. And so we were like, let's start chanting, God bless Lagana. Can you imagine hearing your name being shouted by 10,000 people that's rumbling the walls around you? It was such a powerful spectacle. But it is what we are driving towards. One day, that moment is probably going to happen in DC. It's going to be happening in state capitals across the country. And it is really important that each one of us continues to build this army for truth, because the politics won't move if the people are not demanding it. So that is really, and everywhere I go, every think tank, I was just in one last week. We had a great meeting in Orlando, bringing together a lot of the different organizations. But I said, in the end, this is still about the court of public opinion. We can win in the courtroom and we can try and move legislators, but until we have enough people to really make our demands and know that they have got to listen to us. We're getting there, we're growing, but that's what each person that is not, walking into the senator and speaking or working for your PAC, what they can do is enroll more and more people, get more and more people watching the high wire, get more and more people funding the work that you're doing, but continuing to grow this movement. I don't think, clearly that is one battle trend, the battle for the COVID vaccine. These are just battles in a much bigger war that includes so many other conversations that we're having on the high wire now. But I believe there is going to be a pinnacle moment, a moment of, real, that's going to demand all of us. And whenever that moment comes, it will be decided if we were strong enough. And so that is what I think we have to be preparing for.
So powerful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being with us tonight, Dell. We'll have you back on later with your pals from Trenton. I'm going to pass it over the microphone now to Lori. There you go, Lori.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Dell. I have the pleasure tonight and the honor of introducing Senator Mike Testa, who only a few days into his role as senator became our health freedom superhero. He's been a strong voice for not only his constituents, but for families throughout the state. It was evident then, and still is, that he is not someone who just took a job. He took an oath. He abides by that oath and stands in his integrity to do what is right for those he serves, and he will not be intimidated. Let's take a look back at Senator Testa in Trenton in 2019 and 2020.
It's supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. I see diminishing freedoms, but today I see a whole lot of bravery. That is the mama bears of the state of New Jersey, who love their children, love their country, and love their constitutional rights, which are inalienable, which are given to us by our Creator. I recognize so many of the faces. I see Dr. Liam right there. I got to meet Dell Bigtree. Dell just asked me what happened, and I'll tell you what happened. America happened.
That was an awesome video. Thank you, Senator Testa. Before we begin, we have our supporters that want to thank you for the pizza you sent that night. So I had to pass that message along.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. It was very cold out there. I have to tell you, the dedication of the parents who were standing outside all day in what was really freezing temperatures, gave me the strength to take the stand that I did. And Dell, Jamel, and I were messaging each other in the private chat. And I had said something that my grandfather taught me, that it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. So that's really
That's such a good quote. Yeah. Thank you. So just 6 days after you were sworn into office, you found yourself in a Senate Health Committee meeting, giving a speech that'll forever be burned into many of our minds. Was there a personal element to your thoughts and feelings that made you so passionate and well-informed in that meeting?
So probably in about October of 2019, a little more than a month before the election, my good friend, Dr. Michael Sarnoff, who happens to, we live in the same neighborhood, we grew up together. He brought his wife, Dr. Katie Sarnoff, and another constituent of mine, Ms. Christina Walls, into my office to really ask me whether I was aware of the movement to remove the religious exemption for mandatory vaccination in New Jersey public schools. And they were extremely passionate and brought me a stack of materials about this big and, a book called The Moth and the Iron Lung. And obviously, I was in the middle of a race, and I said to them, look, this is a lot more simple than what you're presenting to me. This is the basic notion of liberty. And we had what was supposed to be about a half-hour meeting, I think turned into about a 3-hour meeting. And, I said to them from a very basic premise, and this formed the basis of my speech in the health committee, which I didn't even sit on, by the way. I was a substitute in the health committee, but it really formed the basis for my speech that day, is that, you have a sect of Christianity, Jehovah's Witnesses, who our United States Supreme Court has recognized has the right to deny life-saving blood transfusions to their children. And look, whether anybody agrees with that or not, it's been deemed by our Supreme Court, our highest court in the United States, that that's completely valid. And at the time, I was doing a lot more criminal defense work. I still practice law, but not nearly as much as I would like to, because the Senate does take up quite a bit of time. But I went to law school. I'd been practicing law for about 18 years when I was running. And I said, wait a minute, so our United States Supreme Court recognizes that right of parents who are Jehovah's Witnesses to deny their own child a life-saving blood transfusion. And I said, and here in New Jersey, if a perpetrator is believed to have either been under the influence of alcohol or a controlled dangerous substance and gets into a severe car accident and injures someone else, either a pedestrian or the driver or passenger of another motor vehicle, the police have to seek a judicial warrant in order to draw blood from that defendant in order to determine whether they were under the influence of alcohol or controlled dangerous substance. So just those two examples really were driving, my mindset on this issue. And I said, wait a minute, if the government recognizes this right over here of parents who are Jehovah's Witnesses, that they're allowed to deny their child who would absolutely be saved by a blood transfusion. And then you have in the state of New Jersey, our state Supreme Court recognizes the sanctity that exists between the state and what is allowed to be withdrawn from a defendant. I said, wait a minute, this just doesn't make any sense. This violates the basic notion of liberty. And that's really formed the entire basis of my mindset on this since day one that it was brought into my office. And I still keep that mindset today. I mean, the one cool thing about the entire movement, nobody is saying that nobody should be vaccinated. They're saying that you have the right to bodily autonomy and you have the right to determine what either goes into your children's bodies or does not go into your children's bodies. And I don't see how anybody can argue with that logic. I was an unknown when I had just gotten elected and it was actually, I was sworn in December 5th. I was wrong, Lori. It was December 5th of 2019. And 1 week later, I happened to be in that health committee as a substitute. And I said, hey, this can't be too big of a deal. And you got to realize that was the first committee I ever sat on as a senator. So I show up and there's thousands of people at the State House. And, I got a standing ovation and I was somewhat blushing. And someone said to me, this isn't how it always is at the State House. Well, it really was for me for the first month or so because of what occurred and what eventually happened in January, as we know, when the bill was killed.
Well, you wasted no time rising to fame in our community.
It was dumb luck on my part.
Well, you did great to be unprepared and thrown into a committee, and then your speech, we'll never forget it. We had so many people there and then even more watching at home or listening.
Well, and what's funny is, I'm a trial attorney by trade and I'm able to read the room pretty well. And when looking around that room in the health committee, I could tell so many people were skeptical of who I was and believed that I was subbed in to vote for the removal of the religious exemption. And I think I took a lot of the members of the room by surprise by standing there and taking, that stand. What was great about it is prior to the committee, and I have to give a shout out to other members on my side of the aisle, Senator Corrado was there. And so was then Senator Cardinale, may he rest in peace. And, he gave a great speech as well that day. And I have to say, it was great that there were a few of us on my side of the aisle who were taking the stance that we did, that I still remember my words. I said, this just feels wrong. And it's because it is wrong. And it flies in the face of our U.S. Supreme Court decisions and flies in the face of our New Jersey Constitution, New Jersey jurisprudence based on, our criminal law, it makes zero sense to me. It didn't make sense to me then. It doesn't make sense to me today.
Well, we're lucky to have your legal expertise on our side.
Thank you.
But how do you feel things have changed for the medical freedom movement in the 3 years since you came out from the State House to the waiting crowd and announced that America happened?
Oh, wow. I mean, I have to say that video and the videos you've shown thus far this evening really brought back just a rush of memories and emotion. And I've said this before about, when you're in elected office, you don't realize that you're being part of history when it's all happening. But when you get to look back on it, you realize that we were really part of an historical moment and everybody was in this together and the emotions were so high. And I remember speaking to people, up in the rafters, so to speak, of the Senate. And they were, people were extremely emotional saying, look, I'm going to have to move if this happens. And you realize how much of a heavy weight is placed on your shoulders when you're there. And how have things changed? Lori, I think that's a really simple question in the sense that a lot of parents realize that their voices matter and that people like myself, legislators like myself, legislators like Jamel Holley, we miss you there in Trenton, Jamel, that we're accessible people and that we're willing to sit down and listen. And it's not just to get anybody's vote. It's we're there to do the right thing. And sometimes it might not be the most popular opinion. I mean, I certainly stuck my neck out pretty early on, but as I said, that saying from my grandfather, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing, drives what I do each and every day. And having constituents that are behind me and neighbors that are behind me, it really matters to me. And I was told that I was completely off base in the stance that I took, that it was a risk I didn't need to take. And I said, I didn't come to Trenton just to get reelected. I came to Trenton to attempt to make a difference in this state. So parents, I think, realize that their voice matters. And certainly we saw in the elections of 2021 how important parents were in affecting those elections, not only in the state of New Jersey, but look to the state of Virginia. Without those, what we call those kitchen table issues, I don't think you would have, Governor Youngkin and his lieutenant governor in office right now. Parents made a huge difference in the Virginia gubernatorial election, and parents made a huge difference in elections at all levels in the state of New Jersey, from school board, city council, to county freeholders, now county commissioners, and in the legislature. I mean, we saw, the landscape somewhat change in the legislature as a result of 2021. And I just think that parents are so much more involved. And we also see that issue of just the religious exemption issue has now bled into, justifiable protests against some of the sexual education curriculum that is absolutely radical stuff that is attempting to be taught to our children.
I think a lot of parents have been activated since all of this. People that never really voted before, didn't care so much, now are coming forward more. So I think that's great. Looking to the future, do you see a way to once and for all ensure our freedom and our children's freedom? Or do you see this as an ongoing struggle, as the only realistic scenario?
I think it's always going to be an ongoing struggle. I just see it that way. And that's why I think families need to be ever vigilant in making sure that they vote, number one. I mean, that's the very least. I think that's the very baseline of what most people can do. But stay informed, obviously, be informed and go to multiple news sources. If you, with your legislators, follow their Facebook pages, get on their newsletter to see what they're doing. Don't hesitate to email us. Don't hesitate to call us. That's something that, I happen to enjoy. That's one of the best parts of my day. And look, I take a lot of flack on those phone calls, but, for the most part, constituents really care when you call them back and realize that you are, in fact, a regular person like them. And I mean, one of the things that I do, and it's kind of well known on my Facebook, I eat lunch at a lot of the local places. So people see me regularly. I mean, Dr. Michael Sarnoff he's been teasing me that we haven't had lunch in a long time, and I certainly plan to do that soon. But like, it's a regular thing. I mean, I got noticed today at a local eatery called Olympia. It's one of my favorite Greek restaurants in South Jersey, and it's great. I think the more people realize that we're regular people and that we are accessible, and it's okay to call us at our legislative office and email us, as long as you're doing it in a really civilized manner, the way those rallies were. I mean, that was really Americans exercising their rights as Americans and saying, hey, look, we're not going to stand for this. And everybody was civil. Imagine that. Nobody got arrested. Nobody tried to break any doors. Nobody tried to bust into anybody's office. You all did it the real right way. And I have to, tip my hat, to everybody that was there. Whether you're on this call or not, I have to tip my hat. And look at the result of those days that, people thought we were in, some very dark days in the state of New Jersey. Your PAC wouldn't have been formed if it weren't for those days. And I have to say, your PAC has made a difference. I think that you've been extremely objective in your voter guide. I appreciated the questionnaire. I appreciated the analysis that you did in the districts that you endorsed candidates or did not endorse candidates. I think it's just really wonderful, the work that you all are doing. And look, you're able to get sitting legislators to skip dinner and stay on, a call like this.
Well, thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. You're always good to us, keep us informed, and, thank you very much. And I do want to thank the Sarnoffs and Christina for helping inform you, without which we may not have that great speech.
No, there's some great pictures from that day in my law library that I know both doctors Sarnoff have. And it's, that was really the beginning of, my education as to the issue. And I still remember the comments that I made to Dell Bigtree in the health committee. He had painted a lot of us with a very broad brush and said that we all bowed at the doctor's white coats. And I remember saying I said, Mr. Bigtree, please don't paint us all with so broad a brush. And, it was great to say that. And look, it's wonderful. We sometimes text each other. It's, few and far between, but it's great to see him on the high wire, covering issues that mainstream media isn't necessarily covering. And again, that's something I think we all need to do. We have to use multiple media sources so that we can decide for ourselves and separate the wheat from the chaff.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, thank you for joining us. And I'm going to pass. Thanks. I'm going to pass to Rula to. Oh.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. I am thrilled and honored to welcome our next guest, Assemblyman Jamel Holley, to our show tonight. Jamel was at the forefront of the Battle of Trenton and never left our side. From the moment he gave his first speech on the steps of the State House until today, his support and passion for medical freedom and our mission has been unwavering. Let's take a look back at his time in Trenton in 2019 and 2020.
Our next speaker is Assemblyman Holley.
To all the young people, all the young children who are here today, this has been about you. And I am so honored that just looking at so many young people, this one and Levi over here, and just all the pictures you all sent me, this is about them at the end of the day. And I will not be a part of a body of government that says we cannot protect our own rights. I won't do it, not then, and I'm not going to do it now. We are for the people, by the people. Holley's with you. God bless you all.
I thought Mike Testa changed colors that quick.
That's hello, Assemblyman.
Hello.
Welcome on. So
How you
happy
doing,
to
Rilla?
see you. Great,
Good
great.
evening.
How are you doing?
I'm blessed. Thank you.
All right, we're going to get right into it. So It felt like you were catapulted into the medical freedom movement and quickly evolved into one of the biggest and most passionate voices of support. Can you share one of your earliest memories and interactions with our community? Why did this issue resonate with you so much?
I think Dell touched on it a little bit during his conversation with you earlier. At that time, I was 40 years old and I had entered the State House as a young staffer around 19, 20 years old. So the State House was a part of my life for a great part of my adult life. And I have never witnessed, I mean, we've had a lot of complex issues over the years, whether it was dealing with a variety of things, but I've never in my life seen so many people. And to answer your question about that moment, that memory, it is what catapulted me. Was I was sitting in the chambers on the assembly side, and I just heard the voices through those windows, and I leaned over to my colleague and I said, do you hear that? And they replied, yeah. And it was me getting up out of my seat and just walking outside. And for me, what touched the moment for me was to see so many people, but I saw those kids, I saw the children out there in the cold. And it just struck me. And I just had to do something about it. The best, listen, I'm only one vote, right? But it was just something that I know needed to be addressed and heard inside the State House as opposed to outside the State House. So for me, it was that moment sitting in those chambers, hearing the cries, and then going out there and looking at those tears and seeing those kids for me.
Yeah, so it sounds like the issue became very real to you and humanized, right? And you were there in the trenches with those children and you fought for them. And, since that battle of Trenton, you have continued to use your voice to provide a message of hope and support, not only in New Jersey, but also to medical freedom advocates across the country. What has your experience been like? How would you say New Jersey differs from other states you visited?
I think the experiences has been incredible. I mean, Dell can touch on this as well. I mean, we travel all over the country, different states, meeting different parents. And everyone always reminds me about New Jersey. New Jersey parents, New Jersey mama bears, New Jersey papa bears, New Jersey grandma bears, New Jersey grandpa bears, really have resonated throughout this entire country. They often remind me about the victory that we had here in New Jersey. And it gives them hope, it gives them optimism. And I'm just able to share that experience with them across the entire country because it was a critical moment in policymaking, political, making in terms of, really going up against the giant of Big Pharma right in their backyard and the political influence that was against us. So New Jersey is definitely on the map in the entire country. Because of the hard goodwill of parents and the kids too. I mean, that makes a difference.
Right.
And so, I'm just very honored that I was able to be a part of this movement and continue to be a part of this movement. But New Jersey definitely has made its mark throughout the entire country.
It has. And, you definitely have become a symbol of that and that symbol of hope that if we were able to do it in New Jersey, it gives families and parents in other states that same hope. New Jersey did it, we can do it. And you've carried that message. So we appreciate it. Jamel, you once posted on social media, I warned my party, stay away from parental rights, individual freedoms, rights to choice, and be pro medical freedom. Do you feel like your message has been heard or did it fall on deaf ears? What does the future hold for you and your party?
I mean, definitely has been heard. I mean, Mike Testa, a senator from South Jersey, has definitely touched on it a little bit in this interview. The Democratic Party and I'm a Democrat, proud Democrat, but Democratic Party needs to focus more on issues relevant to our communities as opposed to approaching on parental rights. But Mike touched it on his interview. You know, we lost seats in the Assembly. We lost seats in the Senate. And, you know, you look at Virginia and you look across the country, this issue has become a real tabletop issue throughout the country. And so they definitely have been put on notice. They understand. But members like you and members of your PAC, and I encourage other members who have not joined your fundraising team to join it, because you all make a difference and matter. And it's very important that you continue to stay vigilant, because these bills and these laws pop up, you know, all the time. And then it's like a domino effect. I mean, there's been times and months, and Dell can touch on this as well. We're in California, we're in Connecticut, we're in Virginia, and you have these lobbyists that are all coordinated to just storm these state houses all across the country. It's hard to keep up with them, I tell you that, because they have foots on the ground and money on the ground. But PACs like yours and the members in this movement have definitely made a difference. But to go back to your question, yeah, the party has definitely been put on notice. They definitely understand that this is a real issue, and I don't think they want to try to get as near here in New Jersey for the most part, and encroaching on your parental rights.
Right. And, you know, we hope, you know, we've approached 3 years and we hope it lasts another 30 years. But in order to do that, Assemblyman, we need to keep, you know, we need to stay on our toes, and we need to keep educating and making sure that these rights are protected and preserved. We can never really, unfortunately, sit back. And as Mel mentioned before, this is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And you have held our hand through this marathon, Assemblyman, and continued the marathon and spreading the message. So thank you so much for everything you did in 2019, 2020, and to this day.
My pleasure, and keep up the good work. You're all doing an amazing job.
So hang tight, stay on here with us. We're going to bring the other two interviewees back on. Hi, everyone. Okay, so we've concluded our single interviews. We're going to bring the three gentlemen back on now so we can have a bit of a reunion. So let's bring them on. There we go. There are the three amigos. Welcome back, gentlemen. We wanted to bring you back here tonight as a little bit of a reunion, some final messages for you guys to converse a little bit, give some messages to our community and the people that are tuned in tonight. So let's kick off with you, Dell, and, you know, bring us your final thoughts here, what you saw tonight, any messages going forward.
You know, I was just sitting here and reflecting. I mean, you know, I don't live in New Jersey, and as Jamel put it, you know, I travel all over the country all the time. But you know, I was just reflecting. I pulled up on my phone to remind myself what the original Battle of Trenton was, and you know, as it's described, it's not the end of the war, right? It's not the final victory. But the Battle of Trenton, you know, the moment George Washington surprises the troops and comes across the river, what they all describe it as was it reinvigorated a belief that we could win. It reinvigorated an enlistment of troops for people to join and become a part of this revolution, to stand for something. And it really, and you know, it's so close in date, but just it's really truly the best representation. It truly was the Battle of Trenton all over again. What this battle did for this movement that had been demoralized, had been at it for a very long time, and really, as you keep saying, a part of this marathon, It brought new energy, and the new voices, Jamel Holley and Senator Michael Testa, and you guys, it just was a shift. No longer, and you were so right, Michael, when you sort of called me out on don't paint us all with this broad brush. It was very important. It was a really good message to me to remember, and we all have to remember this, that we cannot generalize, who we're talking to. We don't know who we're talking to. We don't know who's on our side. We cannot make generalizations or assumptions. We have to recognize that inside every person is an ability to wake up, to understand if we find the right talking point, we find what it is they really care about. I think I want to say, because, when I came into this movement, I was brand new just back in 2016 when our film released Vaxxed. And, there was skepticism on, am I for real? Is he going to stick around? Is he just, a flash in the pan? And I had all this energy, and a lot of people walked up to me and said, Dell, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But I would be careful about saying that now. And I guess it depends on our definition of a marathon. But I will say this, we are running out of time. This whole thing has been a very long marathon, probably a century long when we talk about the vaccine conversation. When we look at the oppression of humanity and the desire to control us, authoritarian governments, communism, all these things that we fought off for so long that have gone back to drawing boards and designed a way to take over media, to affect our education system so that we would be too complacent to stand for ourselves. All of that is the marathon. But for everyone out there, I think it's time to stop saying that, because there's people say, oh, good, so then I have some time to decide when I want to jump in this. And the truth is we don't have any more time. This is not going to be a marathon for much longer. The conversations that are happening in this country, what we just happened with COVID, is so, horrifying, that there was an alignment by a very, truly a conspiracy of a very small group of corrupted scientists that were able to influence health departments through WHO, and virtually every government in our world just turned on its own people. We've never seen any moment like this in history. Our world wars up until this point have been contained inside one, a country against a country, a few countries, maybe a continent against another continent. This was a war that the entire world, the politicians of the world, brought this war upon the citizens of the world. This is coming to a close, and I've said it. This is not a fight that we will sit and say, oh, I'm going to do the best I can and leave it to my children, leave it to my grandchildren. We are literally going to see the end of this battle, most of us in our lifetime. And I truly believe probably within the next 5 years, we'll have a really good sense whether or not we will be allowed sovereignty of our own bodies, to be able to travel freely on this earth without being tracked everywhere we go, essentially avoiding a permanent house arrest of some form of another. World Economic Forum, Bill Gates Foundation, Gavi, WHO, UNICEF, all of these things, and tons of money are investing in the idea of tracking us in every move that we're making. And I think what is so brilliant about this conversation, and why I'm so passionate about it as a journalist, as a freedom fighter, and what I say, I'll be speaking in Acapulco, where there'll be people talking about banking and talking about all the other issues, and they're out there, AI, all of it is behind the tip of the spear, which I believe is this vaccine conversation. This is literally the most important conversation that is happening all around the world. If we win this, we can win the whole thing. If we do not, we are in real trouble. And I will say this too, when people are saying, well, Dell, what about, organic food, or why aren't you talking more about 5G or these things? I'll tell you why. Because I think of this as, if you are being imprisoned, if you've been held captive or taken prisoner, if you're trying to cut through that, you've got a toothbrush and you're going to try to dig your way out of that cell, that 3 feet of concrete. You don't hit a little bit here and hit a little bit here and hit a little bit here and hit a little bit here. You pick the one spot that we can all agree could bring this whole thing down, and everybody drills that same spot. That's what this conversation is. This literally holds what we believe our government has the power to do. It holds our belief in government, our belief in health systems, who gets to control us. if we can make aware, create an awareness for all the people of what is wrong with this vaccine program and how many lies have been around it and how it has been used against us, we will be able to change and get back to the dream of our founding fathers of what this government is supposed to be, as Michael Testa and his grandfather are so clearly laying out in the history of African Americans, what Jamel Holley stands for on so many different levels. This conversation holds it all. It holds the corruption of government. It holds the manipulation of science. It holds the control over, media. So I would just say this: we have got to be more vigilant than ever. And maybe it's just my own personal thing. I can't tell you how many things I just did today. I can't tell you how hard I'm trying to raise money to fight to stop the attack on religious exemptions. I believe we're going to bring devastating blows that we think will have national implications this year. But I am filled with a passion because I am fighting for my kids. I don't know how long I get to be here. I don't know how long any of this is going to truly be. I don't know how this ends. People say, Dell, how does this end? What is your vision in the end? That's for God to decide. That is what God gets to decide. All I get to decide is, am I going to be a warrior for God's mission, for truth, for the humanity and the people that are, created in the image and likeness of God. This idea that my government injects me with products, puts masks on my children to make them afraid to breathe God's air, that they aren't safe, that we aren't protected. The churches that have been enrolled to make us afraid of a virus as though God has no power over those things. This truly is the demise of what we stand for. It's the demise of the power of every religion that wants to exist, the God that we all share. This is man trying to take control over the things it has no control over. And as I've said before, ultimately COVID and this entire pandemic has been a white-knuckled, desperate grasp by the Neanderthals of medicine trying to hold on to relevance. There is a beauty and a power to what we can do, the healing tools that are available to us now, and the rights that we should stand for. This is the moment. And instead, all I would say is this, when we get afraid, this is what Trenton was so great. It wasn't just moms. It was fathers and mothers. We've never, in every race, culture, and creed. In Los Angeles, they said the same thing, that we've never seen this diverse an audience all together in one giant space like this. Mm-hmm. But this is the moment. This is the moment in which
it's not an issue.
Home.
It's not an issue that we care about. It is the issue. It is the issue. And like you said, I will echo, if you don't have bodily autonomy and if you don't have the right to protect your children and decide what is done with your body and your children's bodies, you have nothing else. There is not even a close second to us and people in our community. This is the issue. This is what we fight for. And the stake in the game is our children. And that is what we are on this earth to do, is to protect them. And and we will continue to do that with the help and support of voices like yours. We're going to carry on this conversation. Thoughts, Assemblyman, Senator?
I'll certainly chime in. Dell, that was a great recitation of what's been happening and what
it took me back.
Need to do to be ever vigilant. I mean, I think we saw, who would have known? Like, we're here celebrating this 3-year anniversary, and I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out all the people that I see on the right side of my screen who are making comments in the chat. I'm unable to comment, I guess, because I'm a participant. I wanted to say hello to so many of you because I recognize so many of your names. Many of you are my Facebook friends, and many of you I recognize from being in those crowds in December and in January of 19 and 2020 and beyond. But something that we saw, we would have never known was coming in January of 2020 was COVID. And what we saw, which was quite scary to me as an attorney, I really love definitions. And we saw the definition of vaccine change during the COVID era. I'm a pretty basic individual, and a vaccine is supposed to do 2 things. It's supposed to, 1, prevent you from contracting a disease, and 2, prevent you from spreading a disease. We found out that the vaccine for COVID doesn't do either of those things. And yet we were supposed to believe that this is something that is effective. And we saw, and this is the issue that I have. You know, whatever happened to the party of my body, my choice? Now all of a sudden it's something that's being forced upon us. And I have to say that I wish there were more Jamel Holleys on the other side of the aisle, because I didn't see that in the state of New Jersey, nor did I see it much nationwide. And unfortunately, it did cut along party lines, and it's not something that should be partisan. I agree with you 100%, Dell. This is a human issue. This is a basic issue of liberty. And then especially so, you know, first we're told it's 99% effective. Then it's 97% effective. Then it's 94% effective. And then we still don't really know. So the point I'm trying to make is that true science is ever evolving. And that there is no such thing as concrete science until it's proven, like gravity. We know gravity is there, right? We know that it exists. But this was rapidly evolving over time. And if you challenged it at all, and nobody knows when you challenge the big party what happens to them more than Jamel Holley. Nobody knows what happens when you get punished. But when you challenge what they were trying to shove down our throats as quote unquote science, Dr. Fauci originally says you don't need a mask, then you need one mask, then you need two masks. Then he's not so sure whether you need two masks and you need one mask. I mean, remember how ridiculous it was when you saw people with, like, at the supermarket with two masks on and then that big visor? I mean, I saw that all over the place, and it was laughable. And yet so many people were duped. And it was this conglomerate between the government, which was Dr. Anthony Fauci, and, you know, he considered himself the government and he considered himself the science. And he said those things publicly. And no one was really holding him accountable in mainstream media, which disturbed me. And yet in New Jersey, 1/3 of all of our small businesses shut down forever as a result of these draconian measures. And I have to tell you, I remember being on the phone with a constituent who was crying, saying, I'm a fourth generation person in this business, and I am going to lose my business. I am going to be the embarrassment of my family because the government has now not allowed me to participate in my business. And, you know, again, I'm a firm believer in the Constitution. I know Jamel is. We took the same oath when we took the oath of office. And something that really I'm very passionate about, here it was, your First Amendment right to attend your church was, not only was it inhibited, it was prevented. You weren't allowed to go to church, but you were allowed to go to your liquor store or to a marijuana dispensary. I remember I held a press conference in May of 2020 at Coho Brewing. I'm going to give a shout out to Karen Buckingham, a female-owned brewery right in Cape May County, Middle Township. You were only allowed to get beer via takeout. Now, for a brewery, that's really hard to do. Right across the street, while I was hosting my press conference with Assemblyman Antoine McClellan and Assemblyman Eric Simonson, across the street is a Home Depot. There were over 200 cars at the Home Depot. Mm-hmm. So this had nothing to do with science. If we were going to really exercise scientific method, we were literally able to show across the street the science was not the same. So
one of the biggest messages that we tried to relay, us here in this room and the people that showed up to Trenton, is that eventually this issue where your rights are infringed upon will land on your doorstep. So stop it now before it does. We said to many people, you may not realize that we are fighting for you, but we are. And so many people woke up during the COVID pandemic and said, we now realize you were fighting for us, because the issue finally landed on their doorstep, whether it was a nurse.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that, Rula. I think what COVID did was really woke a lot of folks up. And, you know, it's been very difficult for me, right? You know, I'm an African American. African Americans, you know, in the Democratic Party and per se, you know, go along with the CNNs. They go along with the mainstream media that's really just focused on a lot of hype, right? But what COVID did, and what I see, and Dell, to your credit, because you were very consistent with the high wire, and there's been a lot of diversity and a lot of audience movement from the African American community over to the high wire, because you speak truth to power. And so it was really difficult for me as a young African American Democrat, not towing the line like I was supposed to be. And coming out of that was a very difficult transition for me. But I knew that it was the right thing to do, because I knew what was eventually going to be coming, and it did. And so for me, I mean, I stood on the right side of history. I didn't know that, folks would say, no, keep going, Jamel, keep going. You're on the right side of history, on the right side of history. And now they were right. We were on the right side of history. But I got to be honest with you, this was a very, very difficult transition for me, being a young African American in the Democratic Party. I still have remnants from it, but that's neither here or there. But for me, it was the right thing to do. But Rule, I think you really brought up an interesting point of what COVID did.
Right.
There were a lot of different arguments on both sides, but what it really did was woke up a lot of people. It really, really did. It really did.
It's did. Amazing too, Jamel, that really still, because there's such the Democrat Party still relies on the African American community, but that is still the least vaccinated when it comes to the COVID vaccine community in this country. This scared the hell out of them. This looked so much like Tuskegee, and frankly, that's what it was. It's a worldwide Tuskegee experiment, where we were denied products and drugs, and even vitamins, but certainly hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, that could have saved lives, and instead let people die in hospitals and denied them that. I mean, it recurred, only this time it was for every race and creed in the world. But what's so interesting, and I think there's a rebuilding that we will see over in the immediate future of the Democratic Party, and moving towards back to liberty, right? I mean, being a liberal meant you believed in liberty. I think that they've really, really lost their way. And I hope we see you back in the politics of this. I think especially now, you are such a powerful and important voice. And I think you need to save that party. It is a disaster what is happening. Democrats shouldn't be authoritarians. And I think it'd be very easy to point that out now, that that is not what it's supposed to be.
So I think looking at this video here, and all of our guest speakers here tonight, each one of you are unique and brought something different to the table in this battle. And I think that is, if we talk about New Jersey, organically, so many different people came together 3 years ago. And I think that was the magic that occurred. It was organic. People from different walks of life, all fighting for a collective mission. And, we can't thank you three enough for being there then and continuing to be there today. Like you said, Dell, you can't run forever. If we refer to it as a marathon, eventually even the best of the marathon runners, die out, right? So we need to keep fighting. We need to stay vigilant, and the activities that unfold today are important because they will determine our future. And compliance is a word, right? We can't just simply comply. With COVID, I think it was a big test to see the level of compliance that these governments can achieve with its people. So you have been with us for quite a while now tonight. We appreciate your time, your messages, your passion, and your continued support. Thank you so much. We are grateful for you all.
No, thank you for the opportunity. It was good to see my brothers in the medical freedom movement. We often see each other just in passing, but it was good to just take some moments out tonight to not only highlight the anniversary, but to thank you all, the women from NJ5 PAC, for all that you're doing. Dell, it's always a pleasure. I guess I'll see you in Florida at some point the next few weeks. But it was a pleasure. This was a very momentous occasion for all of us ladies to get the brothers on a Zoom, and we're just very grateful for all you continue to do.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It was really wonderful to reminisce about what happened 3 years ago and to see where this is, where this movement is going and into the future. And, who could have known that we were going to be facing 2 months after this?
Right.
COVID.
Well, let's hope we can make it to a 4-year, 5-year, 10-year
We
anniversary,
will.
right? Let's get there.
Thank you for making this
All right.
all happen. And I just want to say, these are the celebrations we need to have. Everybody stay focused on the wins. Stay focused on the positive. Let's not focus on those that we've lost, or those that complied, or those that stood, and didn't stand for freedom. Look how many have. Look how many stood in Trenton. That was the beginning. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Stay focused on our power, and as individuals and as a group. And I'll see you guys on the other side of this finish line. We're going to win this.
Thanks, Dell.
Thanks so much, guys.
Right.
Have a great night.
We'll be right back. So while we are here tonight to celebrate and commemorate a time in history from 3 years ago, we have a responsibility to also bring the conversation forward to ensure that health freedom and religious freedom remain intact in New Jersey. There are a few bad bills that have been drafted and introduced in the New Jersey legislature that would infringe upon our health freedom in the state. One is a bill that will allow for medical tracking of adults via a statewide database. Another is to mandate yearly flu shots for kindergartners through 12th grade in order to attend school. Another is mandatory COVID shots for all higher education students in New Jersey, staff, and personnel at those entities. We will always have opposing forces to freedom, and as such, we need to stay vigilant in our fight. While the Battle of Trenton 2020 is complete, the battle to maintain and preserve freedom and health freedom in the state of New Jersey is still very much ongoing. We want to show you a video now of Senator Vitale and what he had to say with regard to COVID shots and mandates for our children in the state of New Jersey.
Now, once our schools get the green light to open fully to in-person learning, which will most likely not be until next fall, one New Jersey senator is proposing mandatory vaccinations for all students.
Thank you for doing this for us.
Sure.
We appreciate you being with us and talking about this. This is a tough topic for some parents, many claiming religious exemptions, even just at baseline. And then we're introducing a potential COVID vaccination that would be required. What would you say to those parents as you push forward to make vaccinations required for students?
Well, the first thing we would do is just to make sure that whatever vaccine is selected or developed is appropriate for children. If from the very beginning, it's what I said, when and if, or if and when a vaccine is developed that's safe and effective for children, we should consider having that as part of those vaccines that are required for entry into school. And now we have, mumps, measles, rubella, polio, a variety of different vaccines that children are required to have. And those who can opt out, meaning parents who can opt their children out, can do so for medical purposes or for now religious exemptions. And we found that over the years, many families have decided that they don't want to vaccinate the children. It's really not about a religious exemption. It's more philosophical. It's more based on some science that they've read, concerns they may have. And I don't disregard those concerns. But the reason that these vaccines are required is because they're effective. The reason that we don't have polio any longer in this country, or smallpox, or all these other awful diseases, is because we've developed vaccines to defeat them. We can imagine now what it's like not to have a vaccine with COVID, right? That's what life would be like if we didn't have vaccines for children, and who are really vectors for a virus. You bring them home. My children got to daycare, and parents with kids in daycare know that they come home with cold, and pink eye, a variety of different illnesses, and that, kids have to build up immunity, and that makes sense. But that sort of illustrates that children can be vectors for a virus, not just for themselves and their classmates, but for adults and the elderly as well, which is the biggest concern, I think. If you read some of the Facebook posts or the websites that try to debunk vaccines as some great conspiracy, or they cause autism, which they don't do, or they're suspect, they're really not. There are reactions for some people. Mostly it's the site of the needle stick. There's maybe some inflammation, maybe a small fever, but 99.9% of the time it's safe and effective, and there's a purpose for that. So we don't take these issues lightly. We don't take the science lightly. We don't take the requirements lightly. We get it, and we get it as parents. But we, at the end of the day, we want to be able to protect our children and adults as well, because they can be victims of an outbreak or a virus.
And just last question, what is the timeline for your proposal? What's the traction been like for you?
The timeline is when it is that science develops one for children, and they're still going through their trials now. And the vaccines that are available are mostly for adults 18 or sometimes 16 or 17 and older,
So you
not yet for children.
You would do this as soon as it's available, as soon as it's ready for children under the age of 16. You want to get everybody inoculated, essentially.
We would like to, yes. Yep.
And what's the support been like for you?
Well, there's support in the legislature for it. My colleagues who get this understand it. The scientists and the doctors who don't have a horse in the race, don't have a stake in this, don't have any monetary benefit. They get that this works. And look, it's not going to happen unless there is a safe and effective vaccine. And once there is, and that can be proven through trials, then we should go forward with that vaccine.
Senator Vitale, thank you so much for chatting with us today. We really appreciate it and taking the time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for asking.
So there you have it. That's Senator Joe Vitale basically stating that his goal is to have our children take the COVID vaccine in order to attend school here in New Jersey. Senator Vitale is also the chair of the Senate Health Committee. So going back to what we witnessed in the Senate Health Committee back in 2019, when our bill was passed, he was the sponsor of the bill at that time, and he was the chair of that committee. So he put our bill up, and he was a main driver for the religious exemption bill in 2019. He also was seen, people saw him, like I had mentioned earlier, going back and forth between Senator Sweeney and Senator Lagana during that voting session on the full Senate floor to try and sway Senator Lagana's vote to vote for this bill. So he is not a friend of ours. With that said, 2023 is another election year here in New Jersey, with all 120 seats up for election in the legislature. Who would like to see Joe Vitale unseated? I know I would. We won the Battle of Trenton in 2020 and then made it through a pandemic for nearly 3 years. Amidst this, New Jersey was able to achieve some incredible changes in seats through the 2021 legislative election and the 2022 congressional election, with more than a handful of newly elected officials who now stand for health freedom. NJ5 PAC will be vetting all candidates in the 2023 election and publishing a voter guide to assist voters in knowing who the strongest candidate is for health freedom. Please make sure you follow us on social media and also sign up on our website to stay in touch so that you receive our important email notifications. We will also be hosting webinars and information sessions throughout the year on important topics and strategic planning. We inform all of our supporters via email with regard to these sessions, And we offer complimentary attendance to our monthly contributors for some of these events. Please consider becoming a monthly contributor today. Our monthly contributions are what allow us to do the work we are doing. Every member of the PAC board is a volunteer, and all of our time and work is 100% donated. Your contributions allow us to put your dollars towards effective electioneering tactics that have been proven to influence key legislative races, like we saw in 2021 and in 2022. We cannot be successful alone. Your support is a huge part of our success and ensuring the longevity of health freedom in our beloved state of New Jersey. So for the next 24 hours, as Marin mentioned, we are welcoming any new monthly contributors who sign up for a $25 or more monthly contribution. You will receive a complimentary t-shirt from us. Thank you for your consideration, and we hope to see lots of necklaces and t-shirts and sweatshirts out and about in New Jersey. These are subtle identifiers, and you never know who you might bump into. I'm going to hand it off to Felicia, and she's going to close us out.
Thank you, Katie. Well, that concludes our event this evening. We want to thank our very special guests, of course, Dell Bigtree, Senator Mike Testa, and Jamel Holley. These gentlemen continue to work and each in their own way to do the work that really matters to us, and we really appreciate them. And thank you to every single one of you who has tuned in tonight, or maybe you're seeing this on replay. Your time and your attention, and most importantly, your trust and your support mean so much to all of us. Please continue to do everything you can do to bring about the change that are so necessary, and please continue to help us do what we do. Be on the lookout for more information regarding events in the near future by following us on all of our social media. And we hope you all have a very good night, New Jersey. Please stay tuned for our commercial and a really fun bleeper at the end.
Hey, freedom fighters, it's Michael and Katie. Sarnoff, we're not going to be able to be on the call tonight, but we just wanted to say we're thinking of you. I just went through an envelope that I look through every time this time of year. It's got everything in it, the parking pass from January 13th, from all the December visits, all the visitor badges, all the things we handed out at the testimony. This is a flag from someone gave me at the end of the 12 hours in December. This is one of the bullhorns. I know you remember that sound. This is the last day. What we talked about with the public schools. Thank you, Senator Testa, and all the people involved. We're with you. This is like a big family. We can't tell you how upset we are. We couldn't be on this little reunion call with the pure motivator Dell and the savior Senator Testa and all the NJ5 PAC family. We love you. Happy 3rd anniversary. And Goliath is dizzy. Dell said it the other day on the high wire. Goliath is dizzy. I love that quote. Keep up the prayers. Oh, one last thing. Keep praying. All right, we love you guys.